The internet can totally see you now. Okay, cool. So today I'm going to implement order submission from scratch. We have the checkout flow mostly done, and the final step is to actually create an order, put it in some kind of system, generate an order number for it, send emails, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be starting from checkout 90% done and only order confirmed to go. And maybe we'll have a surprise guest later. Okay, so this is what the order confirm page looks like right now, and it looks pretty terrible. I don't know why I initially designed it like this, but it just doesn't look very good. So I thought about it, and I want it to look like this. Usually before I start the development, I'll just do like a drawing. Something like this, where the order button's on top, and below, I guess actually right here, there would be a box for like how much you're paying, how many items you have, the order summary. Each of these three items would be something like shipping, measurements, and payment. So you can see it in this nice box pattern. And then this would be each item you have listed. So like I have kind of a basic layout, but not really, and it just doesn't look as good as it could be. So I'm going to do styling. I'm not sure how well it'll show up, because it looks like this thing's a little small, but hopefully you can see it. Yeah, so styling, I usually like to work from a fully rendered mockup before I do anything, because then I can have the pixels written down and I don't have to try to convert like a design into words and then words into code. I can just read the values off of like a vector mockup, but I don't have that right now because I don't feel like making it. So I'm just gonna kind of freewheel it here. So let's see, this is called review step, order review. Cool. Okay, this is what my order review class looks like. And I'm using CSS right now, but I just converted to using inline styles, which is basically, you can see like how I have it kind of set up right now. A lot of this uses, so this is a good example. So this canvas element, which is it does like the ripple effect when you click a button. It looks like this, that little ripple thing. I converted this to use inline styles. So you see, instead of having a class, it has a class, but most of the styles here are just added to the element, and that's like the new cool thing to do. I don't know how long that'll stay like a cool thing, but I like that we can write it in JavaScript and not have to write it in CSS, because I do not like writing CSS. It stresses me out. It seems complicated, and I don't like it. So I'm going to start doing that with this. So instead of having a class here that's order review wrapper, this class right here, I'm just going to rename it to something like, I'm not going to use a class anymore. I'm going to use actually inline styles. So I'm going to import the decorator I use for inline styles. Just call it configured Radium. So Radium is the library that I use to convert JavaScript into actual inline styles. And inherited props just takes any styles that are passed down to from a parent and puts it on the child. So So now I'm all set up to use inline styles. And I just usually define the styles at the bottom of the file. And then if they grow too unwieldy, then I put them in a completely different file. So let's take a look and see what this class currently is. So this is going to be like a combination restyling and refactoring some of the code that's already in there. So I also don't like about CSS. So my main.css file that I'm trying to get rid of, it just has so many files underneath it. And there's just so many definitions that I'm not sure even what they all mean, and I get nervous to change anything. So like I'm not sure where this price currency is used, and I mean I could do like a grep and see where it's actually used, but since I don't know like what it could actually affect if I change this to like, I don't know, display block, I have no way of knowing what that will change unless I go through all the places where that class is used and visually check to make sure that the page style still looks as expected. And I usually don't write unit tests, but I would if I could for this kind of stuff, but I don't think there's a great way to write a unit test to see if something looks funny or if it looks off, so usually I just skip it. Today is also tank top day. Okay, so yeah, that's why I don't like CSS. Oh, wait. So what I ended up doing was like writing super oddly specific class names instead of like generic class names, so like order review. So order review wrapper, right? I would almost guarantee that this series of style attributes, cover absolute, flexbox, I'm using in a different class, but I don't want to make it more generic because if I ever want to change order review wrapper, I'm not sure how it will resonate across the rest of the page if I put it in one class. So that's why I just started having these like oddly specific class names, and then it seems like there's no point to even having CSS if you're not going to have the cascading effect of cascading style sheets. So yeah, what was I doing? Okay. So now I'm gonna go back to, wait, what was I doing? Oh, okay, yeah. Half of doing this is just remembering what I was doing. Okay, so looking back at order review, I'm just gonna convert this into inline styles. So I like to call the root element root. And in case there's an extra state that I need to add to the styles, I usually call this something like base. And then I'll put all of these styles that are in this bottom part here in JavaScript. And I add this base because if I had to add something like active, right, then the JavaScript looks really nice. It's like root.base or root.active. It's just much easier to look at instead of having something like active root and base root. So it's just kind of like a nicer flow to have like that chaining syntax. Okay, so base, cover absolute. I've converted a lot of the mixins I use. Oh, I'm gonna use this keyworks. It sounds much cooler. Come on. Come on. So a lot of the mixins I've written in CSS, I've converted to JavaScript, and I thought that'd be harder, but it's really not. So cover absolute, if we look at what the mixin does, position absolute, top, right, bottom, left, all zeros. Cover absolute I've written in JavaScript, right? It's a function. This is like syntactic sugar for a function, and syntactic sugar just means an easier way to, a different way to write something that is equal to something else. So this is just a function. So position absolute, left, top, bottom, right, 0. So it does the exact same thing. So cover absolute, and then I have, it looks like display flex direction, column, justify, content center, align items. I actually have a mixin to do this. flex centered. I use it so much I actually wrote a mixin for it. And you can see what it does is flexbox, which is display flex, justify content center, align item center. So I can get rid of this, boop, 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 and leave my flex direction as column. And okay, vertically spaced. So what this mixin does is it causes all of the children to have a margin value. So anything that's not the first child is going to have a top margin of 14 pixels. And doing this in JavaScript inline styles is kind of a pain because there is no like selector. You have to add it to each individual element. So you can either add a style HTML element or define on each child the styles. And I thought that'd be a bigger pain, but it turns out most of the children need their own styles, so it ends up not being that big of a deal anyways. Yeah, so it's really not that big of a deal. So I'll just add that. So, I mean, I'll leave that out for now, but when I come back to the children, I'll make sure to add that attribute to each child class. So now, if we say styles dot root dot base, you can specify an array of styles. So it lets it will merge it kind of in order, so it'll override different things. Oh yeah, one interesting thing is like the way SCSS works is this flexbox mixin. It just defines every single vendor prefix for flexbox. So display WebKit box, WebKit flex. It just like adds every single possible vendor prefix, and then the browser automatically selects the vendor prefix that it wants. But obviously in JavaScript you can't do that because the object would have to look like this. Display WebKit box, display flex, right? And this doesn't work. This is like, see, bad news. Suppress for statement. You don't want to suppress that. Because like you can't have the same key have different values. It doesn't make sense in like a JavaScript style object. So the downside of using another downside of using inline styles is the only way to determine what vendor prefix to use is to pass the user agent to the server to determine what kind of styles to render when the page loads. So when there's a request, we pass the user agent to the server, which like on first thought might not seem like a big deal, but in order to speed up page load, we use a content management system, Amazon Cloudbase or CloudFront or something, and it caches values in different locations around the world to speed up page load based on attributes that that the client sends to the server. So if I send the user agent, let's say two people that are sitting right next to each other request the same page that have the same device or that have different devices. If I don't send the user agent, Amazon CloudFront will send them the same exact assets that are already cached. But if I do send the user agent, it'll be two different requests because the user agent values will be different and the server rendering values will be different. So it like dramatically reduces how effective caching is, which really sucks because that is like a giant hit to our server loads and can, increase the load to the server by 10 or 20 times if it's constantly requesting static assets. So we weighed the values, weighed the good side and bad side, but in the end I decided that it's fine. It's not that big of a deal, and plus I decided that for this next build we'll just upload everything to a static asset manager like Amazon S3 or something like that. So none of the static assets will be hosted on our Heroku server instance. So things for requests like images or JavaScript files, all of that will go through Amazon S3. So none of that will have to be hosted on Heroku. I haven't figured out how to do that, but I've heard something like Jenkins is a good way to do it. I don't know. I haven't figured that one out, but I will. So that's what I like and don't like about inline styles. They're amazing to write, but the setup to get them configured is kind of a pain, and the fact that it kind of crushes our content delivery network caching really sucks. Yeah. Okay, so if my theory worked correctly, so right now if we jump over to what the browser actually looks like, if we go up to the top here. We want the root element. That's the toolbar. That's not it. It's not it. It's that one. Let's just search for it. Order, review, wrapper. I'm not sure why it's not there. It might have already saved. Oh, you know what? I actually made a small mistake. I don't need order review. I need order confirm, right? Confirm order. Oh, that's a terrible mistake. All right, so I was restyling order review, which is fine. Like, I'll need that to be restyled anyways, but what I actually want to restyle is confirm order. Doesn't matter. I'll have to do that in the next step anyways, but this is the confirm order page, not the order review page. That's terrible naming on my part, which is like one of the most important parts of having a good having a good development environment is actually naming things correctly. So order review and order confirm, like now that I think about it, I understand why they're different, but they sound super similar. So that's kind of terrible on my part. All right, so this looks way more complicated, which is good. I was kind of nervous why that page didn't look so complicated. Okay. So these, I'm actually not going to restyle these with inline styles, because I use this container fluid class, and that's from Bootstrap, and I haven't found a good way to replicate Bootstrap's grid or container method, so I don't really mess with that. So I'll kind of leave that go as is. So okay, let's see. Let's start with, let me look at my drawing. Let's start with the order button. Let's put that on top. So it looks like I'm using, usually I don't use Bootstrap for this kind of stuff, but it seems like I'm using it in this instance, so that's fine. So I want the button to go on top, so I'll just save that, and then in like 20 minutes when the page reloads, it should look as expected. Oh. So yeah, this is where we are in confirm order. Wish I could display both of those things. Okay, so I'm gonna move the button. So the button node was down here, and you can see where it's located right here, this place order button. And it's just like not super obvious where it is, and it just doesn't look great. I mean, it's okay, but it's not great. Like, you want this immediate call to action to be shown, and it's just not in a good spot right now. So I'm gonna move it above this summary row, which is this guy right here. Also, I don't know if I'm a big fan of the shadows on that guy. I'll probably change that. Yeah, so move it above the summary row. And we're also going to need to restyle it a little bit. So right now, so this is another good example. Right here, I'm using all class names for my button component, which is just the HTML attribute for class in React. I don't know why. Well, I guess class is a JavaScript reserved word. But button, the component, has been converted to use only inline styles. So it doesn't use any kind of classes or CSS. It uses entirely inline styles. So this is the entire style for the button. So you see here, like root, you know, we set the padding here and the color for the defaults. And what's really cool about this is I can specify a kind instead of a class. So I say it's like an error kind. So in my styles attribute, I just have error here, right? And the root's going to be, the background is red, and the color is white, and the children are going to be colored white also. And you can see up here where I have, so I take the kind property and I just say styles at kind, if that exists, use styles.kind at root. Right, so like kind can affect all of these different attributes similar to the way that adding a CSS class would, but I think it's just a little bit more clear and robust what's happening. And it doesn't have to be a global name. Like, you can have a different kind in a whole bunch of different spots, but in CSS, if I defined a type of error, that class would be way too that class would be way too, I'm sorry, way too It's global, so you don't know what it could affect. Yeah. So what was I doing? Why do I have that? Yeah. Confirm order. Let's go back here. Okay, so back to what I was saying originally. You know what? Actually, while I'm here in this button class, I don't like how all this style is getting a little bit too unruly, this object, and it's adding lines to my button class, which is already pretty complicated. So I'm going to move it to its own file. So the file I'll move it to I have a directory called styles, component styles, and wait, what am I looking at here? Not problems, not tests, not changed files, project. So I have styles, component styles. Now I'm going to add a class or a file, button.style. Can't spell the word style, so I'm not using the right keyword. I know some people are like kind of anti the dot syntax, like dot style.js, but I think it's kind of cool. I have no reason behind it, but I think it's kind of classy. So I'm going to pop back over to my button class, and I'm going to grab this styles object. Close this. Grab the styles object, cut it, paste it, change the name. So button styles, and then I have to re-import everything. There should be like an automatic import for everything, like IntelliJ has. IntelliJ. That looks good. Yeah, this part's super annoying. Thank God they added this automatic import. Like, I'm all about writing, like, if you can write this stuff in straight Emacs or VI, if you're that kind of person, then that's incredible. That's amazing. But and that's how I started developing, but I've just grown to love, like, how awesome it is when you misspell something and this thing says, like, oh, did you misspell this? It's just so nice. And it just takes out, like, I get the traditionalist mentality, but it just takes out so much of like the stupid errors that you debug for things that could have easily been avoided at development time. So yeah. Okay, cool. So now that I move these to a different file, I'll just import them. Styles. It's hard to not see because usually I have, so this is distraction free mode, and then in non-distraction free mode, I have all this extra stuff, which is fine, but it's just way more distracting, obviously. But I can't see like where I am. Like this little bar thing up here is super handy. So it's harder for me to see, but whatever, it looks much better. Styles, component styles, and button style. So I like to make sure that my constant isn't named something like style. Like I changed the name because this would be hard to import. Like if I wanted to use the variable button styles, first of all, even if I wasn't using an IDE, having a bunch of variables named styles isn't specific. But since I have this IDE I'm using, if I were to type button styles, it could infer where I want to import that variable from if it wasn't defined in the basic class. Okay. So I'm going to import button styles. Oh, I forgot to add export. So I need to export this constant. Export this constant. So I'm going to import button styles and scope style rules. I'm going to change this to button scope. Okay, but now the problem is that all of my class still thinks that the styles are contained in a variable named named styles. Um, so instead of changing all the variable names, I'll just import this and pretend like it's the variable. This variable name is styles, so I can do button styles as styles, and button scope style rules as scope style scope. I don't know why you like to use that keyboard. Scope style rules. Style. Scope style rules. I feel like I definitely say that with an accent. Even I could hear it. Cool. And now I can get rid of all of these imports. Blech. Barf. See ya. See ya. And now look at how much smaller the button class is. Amazing. Don't need this either. Cool. So we've diverged from our little rabbit hole thingy that I like to say. And now we can go back to the order review step. So order review. No, wait, it's not order review. It's confirm order. That's a terrible name. I'm going to change that. Okay, now, so I want this button to, so like the brand color for this site is this kind of like deep, kind of like strong red color. It's not quite like a burgundy, but it's more of like a, I think it kind of looks like a sophisticated kind of, it reminds me of like what color a couch would be at like a fancy cigar lounge in New York City. It's like this very deep, luxurious red color, and that's like an amazing color. So the primary calls to action, like the really important calls to action on this site I have is this like deep red brand color. It helps to draw the user's attention and just establishes like a default set of styles for the page, so you can immediately recognize where you are if you go to this website. And it works well because like there's not much color besides this kind of deep burgundy color. So I mean, it's okay to have kind of this like audacious, bright, or kind of deep red color when the rest of the page is a little bit more blandly styled. But I also have this kind of like little yellow tinge to it. So it has this like, again, maybe like a off leather type look to it, since this primarily sells men's clothing. That's kind of the mentality I went with. So yeah, so no more delaying. Okay, so now I'm going to convert this to inline styles. So I'm just going to open a splitter in the same file. And down here, I'm going to define my styles. And undoubtedly, I'm probably going to move this into a new file. But for now, like I just like to just keep it going. Just keep it easy. So style is going to be styles dot place dot, let's just call it styles dot, let's call it button. It's a little risky because there might be other buttons on the page, but I don't think there are. Dot base, right? So here we have button base. So right now we have this like, it's a brand button, fixed width, center block, elevated. That's like a lot of classes to have in there. So I think some of these classes I've abstracted into the actual button class. So if we jump over to button, so I think I have a kind, yeah, see kind of brand, right? So the styles for the brand button, if we go over to styles now, search for brand, so brand, the root is going to be the brand color, and the inner color is going to be white. So that's what we want, like a brand color button with white children. With white, yeah, you know what I mean. Okay, so I'll add kind equals brand. We can get rid of this. All right, fixed width button. Let me check what the CSS says for that. That's the other problem, is like trying to remember like where the CSS is defined. Since these aren't like variables that you're importing from somewhere, you have to basically do a complete search to find where this fixed width button class would be. Which, I mean, I know where it is since I wrote all of the code. But if I worked in a company where there was more than 3 developers, this would be insane. I mean, I can only imagine like hundreds of developers it would be. Facebook status. Okay, so fixed width button has a width of 190. Let me just look at the width here. On hover, see like that little thing kind of comes up a little bit. Yeah, that's an okay width. Let's go with 200. Okay, so fixed width button. So I'm just gonna say base width 200. And this is like a warning that I've kind of learned to love and hate. So WebStorm gives me this like magic number warning, which I totally get. In this scenario, I ignore it. But when I do something like, if I did something like this, timeout, if I did something like this, and I wanted to say just like a tick of the process, so like just offset the event loop somehow, so just 18 milliseconds. So it kind of yells at you for this like magic number. And normally I used to kind of like just put these numbers in and think, you know, forget it, whatever. But what this let me do, or what this kind of forced me to do, I wouldn't say forced me, more like encouraged me to do, was put this behind a constant value. So now I have this constant value, process tick, which I won't import for now, but you can see I have defined here. So I have process tick defined as 18, right? So now it's like obviously clear I'm setting a timeout for a process tick amount of time, rather than having to make your mind make like the extra assumption to say, okay, 18, that must be just like one process tick. You know, so it's like a much easier way to say like what you want to do there. 32 minutes, really going slow. Okay. Cool. So our width is at 200. Get rid of that. So we can get rid of this one. Center block, this one's easy because I actually have a mix-in defined for it. Center block. Okay, and center block, just, I'm not like a huge fan of this because like I feel like it only works like half the time. But it displays block and sets the margins to auto for the left and right. And like I've just seen scenarios where I can't explain why it doesn't work, but it's fine. I mean, centering things in the middle of the page is always one of the biggest pains in my opinion. And usually I'll use like Flexbox, or I guess Flexbox is basically my only option. So when I can use this, it's pretty sweet. Okay, cool. So, center block, done. Elevated button, what does that even mean? Let's see if I have it defined in my elevated button. Include elevation 3. Okay, so elevation 3 is a mix-in that I wrote that was inspired by Polymer. I think I actually took the actual CSS directly from Polymer, but Polymer is, if you don't know, it's like this like kind of less good, in my opinion, version of React. It just uses, it's a way to build web components, but it uses only HTML instead of JavaScript. It uses JavaScript too, but HTML is the way you build the components. And it's just like not really production ready. There's a lot of bugs with it, but they have a lot of great default material elements. If you want to check it out, I guess I'll post the link in the comments, but the like some of the designs they have for like a piece of paper, for example, that's like floating off the page, they give you all that code for free. So you can go there and grab that code if you want to. So it's kind of like my secret for how I get things to look so close to the actual material design is I'm actually just using Google's source code that they use. Yeah, okay, so elevated button. Again, I have a mix-in for this that I wrote in JavaScript. right? Elevation 3. And you can see the actual CSS here. So here you can actually see this is the code that Google has. So it just defines what the box shadow is. So I mean, this is just like, it's just a really well-defined box shadow. It gives it this kind of hover effect. So if I add a class here, this is the one downside about inline styles. You can't like add classes on the fly to update your page while you're kind of using this debugger. So to switch over. Okay. So here, like if I have, when it gets there, come on, come on, come on. Elevation 1 is a class I defined to just have an elevation of 1. Not too exciting. But once it loads, just thinking about it. Did I spell the word elevation wrong? I might have talked a big game and not even have that class. I guess I must have deleted that class. Okay, well, I'll have to show, I'll have to think of a different way to show that. Oh, I'll just copy this box shadow. So see, it adds this kind of like little bit of a hover to the button right here. So that's like a level of like 1 off the page, like an abstract unit of measure, 1. And it goes all the way up to 6. Which looks like that. So you see, like that's like really far off the page. That's like as you get closer and further, what it might look like as you kind of zoom out. And it also includes this nice transition function for you to define. If you change the elevation, the button will kind of animate like it's moving towards you and back away from you. I'll post the link to the Google code for that, but it's just a really nice looking box shadow. I haven't been able to make one that looks that good on my own, so that's why I have that. But you can see like how this, I don't really use anything that's above elevation 3. Like that, this looks good, but it's just a little bit too much for me. It's just kind of like a little bit too far off the page. So face is like really close. The closer I get, the more intense I am about figuring this out. Wait, is it confirm order? Wait, what was it called? Confirm order. Yeah. Confirm order. So I have my elevation, and I'm going to set it to 3. Like I said, I don't like to go much more above 3. I think the effect kind of gets lost in translation if you have anything above 3. This class is getting a little unruly, so I might have to figure something out here. Okay. So I got rid of this one. Cool. And now, if we save and refresh, let's see if what I thought would happen happened. Uh-oh. Okay, I think I got it back. Sorry about that. Technical difficulty. Yeah. Okay, cool. So it looks like I've recompiled, so I'll just refresh here. I have React Hotloader going, which just automatically updates all the components, but for some reason it's just not working on this checkout flow. I don't know why. Debugging React Hotloader is like ultra painful, so I'm not going to do it right now. Okay, let's see what we got here. Come on. Yeah, the downside of inline styles is that usually this is how you kind of have to style, since you don't have that cascade effect of CSS. You have to actually add individual styles to the JavaScript and then refresh the page, which when I'm streaming isn't so bad, but can be kind of slow. Going real slow. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is what we're working with right now. I think it looks better. Good, not great. You see like our button is this nice like brand color, and it's just like super clear what we want you to do on this page. Like place that order. Obviously it needs to be a little bit offset from where it's currently located right now. So you see here we have, what is that big border doing there? Why is there a giant margin there? Yeah, we're just going to put a little bit of a margin on it. Let's see. I like to do things in increments of 8 or 6 and then in multiples of 2. So 12, 24, 36, 16, 32, 64. So I'm just going to say 24. And I don't know. I have no explanation for that. It's just kind of a little bit OCD. It's not true. Actually, I do have a reason for it. Like the secret to having a website that looks clean is having a consistent spacing increment. So like picking an increment, whether it's 5, 6, whatever, and then having everything be a multiple of that number. And then you define it in blocks. So if everything's a multiple of 12, your blocks are 12, 24, 36, 48. And if everything is either a margin or spacing or padding of 12, 24, 36, or 48, then the website, I mean, I've just, this is just kind of my own personal experience, it just tends to look much, much cleaner. It's like the secret weapon. Why did we lose our center? Oh, cool. I think that's about right. So we have a margin of 24 on top. We want to make sure we have a margin of 24 on the bottom. So let's add that to our JavaScript. Margin top, 24. Amazing. Now, like you can see here, like I think the margin on this item is on this kind of order summary item right here, the one that's right below the button. I think that it's not 24. Let's see. It's 18, and then this margin is 14. So it's a little bit more than 24, or a little bit less than, wait, what's 18 plus 14? 32. So it's a little bit more than 24, and you can see it just like looks like a little bit uncomfortable. Like I don't like it. It's just like this weird extra space. So we're gonna fix that as the next step. So I'm just gonna kind of work from like top down on this page. So I do not like that. So let's go with this order summary. So the order summary, I had written one for cart, and I think I might use the same exact thing here. Let me see, this is the one I used for cart. See if I like that or not. See if my cart even works. Yeah, I mean, I try to reuse components as much as possible, but sometimes it's just the style just doesn't look good. So I'm not sure if cart will actually match up with the kind of theme I'm going for on the confirm page. Go spinny wheel. I'm also not a big fan of this spinny wheel. I think it just like looks really good, but like I feel like there's something better out there. It's like the iPhone loading wheel. Like I'm kind of over that loading wheel too, like the old like little flower one. I feel like this loading wheel is getting to that point, uh, but it seems to be like pretty standard. It clearly tells someone what's happening on the page, so I just kind of let it go. So you can see my browser's loading ultra slow. So just doing all of the network actions. Go. So this is what my order summary looks like on my cart. This page is going to need a little bit of restyling too, but I don't know if I like that for the confirm page. Oh, and look, reference error. Perfect. I'm not going to debug that right now. I could go either way. I'm not a big fan of the way that looks. No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do something new. No, actually, you know what? I do like that. I am going to go with that. We're totally going with that. Plus, then I can just reuse it. That does look good. And it makes a consistent theme. No, I do like that. So, let's look at the confirm order, or confirm summary. So, I'm basically not going to use all of this. So, this confirm summary class is what renders in that little kind of box right there. It tells you the kind of summary of what you ordered and how much everything costs. I'm going to use the cart summary instead. I kind of like that look. So I have a class called cart summary. Now again, cart summary I designed to be used only for the cart. So it has the name cart summary, which isn't great. And I haven't kind of abstracted it for anything other than being used in the cart. So I have these cart specific things. Ooh, that's not good. That is not good. You know what? Actually, this might be okay. This might be okay just because. So the issue that I'm worried about right now is that this is specifically built for the cart. It's not built for the confirm step. So the properties that I'm feeding it are things like right here, like cart and product map and zip. But I guess technically though, all of those properties are the exact same for the confirm step. So yeah, let's just throw it in there. Wait, what is it called? Order confirm? Order review? No. Confirm order. Yeah. So I'm just going to import it. What's it called? Cart summary. Cart summary. And I'm going to give it, like, this is super anti what I was going with before, but I'm going to give it this, I'm going to give it this class name for Bootstrap. If you've never worked with Bootstrap, it's okay. Good, not great. Okay, so the other thing is this cart summary has this built-in checkout button right now, and I do not want to include that. And I'm also not going to have this on checkout function I'm going to pass into it. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to add a check to see if I have the on checkout function, and if so, render the button. But if not, don't render the button. So JavaScript syntax lets me say if on checkout, and it returns the first positive value. in an and, or the last positive value in an and statement. So if this is positive, it moves to the next statement, and this statement will evaluate to positive because it's not, or I guess truthy would be a better word. It'll evaluate to truthy since it's not null, undefined, zero, or an empty string. So since this evaluates the truthy, this will be returned. So this is just a much easier way of saying, like, if this is true, then render this component. And these little brackets say this is JavaScript. Yeah. So going back to my order confirm. So now I have cart summary, and I'm not going to give it a non-checkout function, because if I did, then it would have that place order button below it. Although maybe that would be a good place for the button. Nah, I'm sticking with my original thought. Okay, so we got cart summary, and let's just see how it looks. Get rid of the confirm summary. Now the cart summary automatically loads the tax information. So in the cart there's an option to specify, because since taxes will be different based on where you're located. Oh, it's cold. Since they'll be different based on where you're located, in the cart we don't necessarily know what the user's taxes will be. So we have an option to like drop down and select what your zip code is, so you can see what your tax rate will be. We don't want to do that in the confirm step, unless we haven't received the shipping information yet. So I think that we should automatically have that taken care of, but that will need a few tweaks, definitely. So while that's loading, see, this class is oh, you couldn't see that whole thing. That's okay, I wasn't doing anything interesting. Confirm order. Okay, so all I didn't do anything interesting. Mostly I just talked that entire time. I just removed confirm summary and put in cart summary. And I patiently waited for my page to reload. Hurry it up. Hurry it up. So I'm just going to look at my little drawing. Cool. So on the drawing of things I wanted to accomplish in 2 hours, I've done this part right here, and I've done this side part that I've started this little side part. Still have to do all of these things. So it's moving really fast. Doing great. Which I guess that's my sarcastic voice. Okay, so the cool thing too is that I might not have been able to see it on the cart, but I already have built out this kind of list of products on the cart page, and the other thing that I've found is having like a consistent look to different things really pays off on a site. Oh, so this looks pretty good actually. So again, like you have this consistent look to the order summary on the confirm order and on the cart page. So I'm kind of a fan of that. Like I like the way that you're on the same site, you've seen this before, it's familiar to you. It just looks really nice. So I kind of like the way this looks. I think that it needs to be a little bit scrunched in, but overall, not too bad. I bet I threw an error, didn't I? I did. So I have to fix that error that I saw when I was looking at the cart right now anyways. Okay, let's start with style. So this is like way too big. I need it to be a little bit like, which means smaller. Like way smaller. The other downside about inline classes is like before I used to have these really nice class names that tell me what each component is. But now, like, look at this hot mess. I have no idea what this element corresponds to in this cart summary class in React. So if you look at my cart summary render function, like all this, like there's no identifier to anything here. I've found a way to kind of mitigate this. It's like kind of a roll your own solution. It's okay, but I just haven't been using it, so it must not be that great. It basically just like puts an identifier. So I'd put like instead of, so this is what the React component looks like, which is just as confusing as the component that's rendered. So the only way I found around this is I can use an identifier like data. I think it's called like data styles or something. And my decorator that I implemented will like remove that and compile the styles and put like an identifier on it based on the component that's rendered. It's okay. It's like a little bit janky. I'm not. Obviously I don't use it, so I'll have to think of a different solution for that. But like, I'm not even sure the best way. If there was like an automatic way to somehow generate these identifiers, it'd be pretty handy. But okay. Anyways, so that's what I'm doing right now. Scrunch. So I'm just gonna take a look here and kind of guess. So this is call small offset 2, call small 8. Okay, so the way Bootstrap works is it just works in increments of 12. Really simple. So if something were to be call of, let's just get rid of the offset. Call offset 0, and let's say this is a call small of 2. It's going to take up 2 divided by 12 of the page. So 1/6 of the page, basically. But if I made this 6, it's going to take up half the page. So you see this is like roughly half of the page now. So like, super simple to make things lay out really nicely. That's like how all those like template websites do it. They use Bootstrap. And I know it's like, it's just like, it's not like super high tech or anything, but I found that it just kind of works. So I kind of like that. Okay, so how's that looking for size? I think maybe just a little smaller. Maybe like a little smaller. Just a little smaller. Or how's that? Too small. So this is the downside of Bootstrap. Everything you have to have in increments of 12. So my options are to make it 4/12 of the page, or 1/3 of the page, or my options are to make it 1/2 of the page, right? Because I can't make it like I could make it 3/4 of the page, but it's just, you have to work in this like 12 increment constraints. So my options are to offset it by 4 and have the width be 4, or to offset it by 3 and have the width be 6. Because 3 and 3 is 6, and 6, the length is 12 total. So that's kind of the downside. But I think this looks nice. I think this looks really nice, actually. Cool. So I'm satisfied with that. Let's get rid of this terrible error that we found. So I'm just going to take a look here. Okay. So zip is not defined. Ooh, that's kind of a stupid one. So in the last stream, I wrote this session storage class, and I actually kind of changed it a little bit since I wrote it. I noticed there were some bugs with it. But the biggest thing I added was like this. I had the set storage object, I added get storage object, and I converted the parameters to a bag of parameters since I wanted to add new things. And I also had get storage string and set storage string, since I found that setting a string versus an object merited a completely different set of functions. But it uses the same parameters, so the same parameters apply to each. So it uses the bag of parameters, and it uses the same kind of object argument. So where am I at here? This error says, oh, I forgot to. It's okay. I wasn't looking at anything. So I'm back in my session storage class, and this error says zip is not defined in session storage, which, let me scroll down a little bit. You can see. Looks like this is happening in the get zip function right here. Yeah, what am I doing here? Oh, see, that's a rookie mistake. For some reason, I'm just incapable of writing this class effectively. I spent like 3 hours this morning trying to do it. Ugh. I really like coffee. I just want to make that face every time I drink it. Okay, so we'll see once I fix that shipping error or that zip code error if that kind of spinny wheel bug goes away. So the other thing I want to do is that I have the option of being able to set your zip code when you're in the cart, even if it's already set. So in the cart summary rather. So there's this kind of like drop down that shows, what's your zip code, will calculate your taxes, and if someone were to enter their zip code, they can change it at any point. The logic I want to add is if the user entered their shipping information, which you can see by the checkout flow, it might be small in the upper right corner, but the shipping's already complete. So if they've entered their shipping information, you can't enter a zip code to change what the estimated tax might be. So that's kind of like where my head's at for the next step. Yeah, timing's good so far. I think I'll make it. Come on. Okay. So let's take a look. So this is the cart summary class. And you can see here, this is where I do the tax. See what tax node is. Make more node. I'm not a big fan of that. I don't like code that I wrote. Like, I don't get, it's hard to love code that you didn't write. It's really hard to love code that you did write. Backwards. Okay. So this makes the node that does the dropdown. Hopefully when this renders, you can see what that looks like, or else it's a little bit confusing. But basically, it just has like a little plus button and lets you kind of drop down to enter the zip code. And again, what I want to do is if the user doesn't have the shipping selected, then it allows you to have the drop down. But if they do have the shipping selected, then you can't use the drop down. So I'll just add a prop type to my cart summary. Let's say can change zip. This is going to be a Boolean. So see whether it can change the zip or not. Okay, cool. So if there's an error, else if not nil cost. See, this is a perfect example of a function that I wrote. I wasn't sure how much I even liked it. And I've kept it, and now I go back to it, and it's like ultra confusing. Like, this code is super confusing, and it takes like 4 parameters, which is terrible. Like, all of these things are complicated, and one of them is optional. It's just not good. It's just really terrible. Okay, so I'm going to try to add some comments. Like, after the fact, I'm going to add some comments to try to make the function seem like a little more usable. Oh, okay, cool. So it looks like fixing that zip error did fix that kind of infinite load wheel bug. So we have here, I was thinking I should probably put like normal clothes. I just wear sweatpants, this is how you do it when you work from home. So I should probably actually pretend like I'm putting on real clothes, but I don't, I won't lie. So you see you have this like plus button, and it's a drop down. That's the sound it makes when I click it. Drop down. There's probably some parameter that's not set. Okay, cool. So you see we have this like kind of like cool drop down, and it lets you enter a new zip code if you want to calculate your tax. But in this sequence, that kind of drop down does not make sense at all for the user, because it's like they already entered their shipping information, and why should they be able to update their zip code? There's a little bug in here where it seems to open both values, I think. Yep, I have to fix that. So that's basically what we're going to pull out. If the shipping information's been entered, do not show that plus sign drop down. It's pretty easy. Plus node. If error, more node. So where's the actual on-click listener? Okay. Oh, God, this is a terrible function. Okay, so what does loading do? Loading determines if the value is loading. See, now my comments are going to be terrible. Error determines if there was a load error. I know like that might seem like super trivial comments, but they're actually like fairly helpful to look at. At least you're not super intimidated by a giant chunk of code. Boolean indicating if the dropdown is open, cost, calculated, cost, optional, if not set, and open action. The function to call when the plus button is clicked. So what I'm going to do here is add a condition. So let's just go for it. Let's add some comments here. If we're loading, return a loader node. Otherwise, return a handle to open the dropdown. So if there was an error, show the error with the dropdown. Otherwise, if the cost is null or undefined, I don't put that. Show the price along with the dropdown. So like this thing right here is what we're going to want to change. Otherwise, just show the dropdown. Okay, so like these comments seem like super trivial, and I'm like I do not like to write comments. But if I ever have to go back and change this function, these are just going to be super helpful for me to have to just like scan really fast and instead of having to like look through the code and analyze it. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is basically just I'm a little hesitant to do this because it seems a little bit hidden, but let's go like this. Instead of defining plus node as a constant, which if something's not going to change, it should be a constant, I'll define it as null. And then I'll check my props. See, okay, so this is another example of where I'm going to add another property here. Has more button. And now it's getting like super out of hand. Now I have 5 properties in this function, so I basically have no choice but to go with a bag of parameters implementation. So in 45 seconds, bag of parameters. Okay, so I'm going to define the type. What's this function called? More node params. More node params is going to take, split that, 45 seconds. I'm not doing good. More node params is going to take, oh no, go down. Wait, is this function defined twice? Make more content. Oh, that sucks. It's going to take loading, which is going to be a maybe Boolean. And I'm going to move this comment up here. I don't care if I spell determines wrong. It's going to take error, which is going to be of any type. Errors I always keep of any type because I never know like if they're going to be an object with a code or a string, and it doesn't matter. Usually I just use it as like a Boolean flag, indicating like if there's an error present, then there must have been an error, and render some kind of message. Spelled Boolean wrong. So I'm just defining what the type parameters are. This is only, this doesn't do anything functionally. It's just like kind of an annotation to help me remember. Cost is a number. Calculate the cost. And open action. This guy. And finally, now we have open action is a function. And finally, we have, what was it called? Should show more. Boolean. And this is going to indicates of a dropdown should be shown. And then, like, why not? Like, what it is like, i.e., if the plus button should be shown. Cool. Cool, let's get rid of this. Let's change this to instead, oh, I'm way over my 45 seconds. We'll use destructuring, one of those two, to remove these values. Should show more is what it's called. Didn't I have a splitter? Okay, cool. So now we'll just refactor. We get this question sometimes when I estimate how long something might take to do. It's like a constant question that we get. And I never include time for things like this. Like refactoring that you can't really foresee but has to be done for the maintainability and portability of the code. I never include that kind of stuff. So that's why it's so hard to estimate time, because you can't really foresee specifically needing a bag of parameters refactoring halfway through writing your order confirm step. So that's why it's so hard to like estimate software time. One of the reasons. Okay, so now I'm going to use this these new parameters. Need to refactor the function call. Make more node. Okay, so instead loading tax, error, load tax. And it's just so much more clear now. I mean, I love bag of parameters. It's so much more clear now what each of these things does. Bag of parameters. Just boop, boop. Open action, and finally should show more. This is where we're going to use that prop that we just added to this cart summary. So it was called can change zip. I sometimes like to keep the names similar, so like maybe the prop is called should show more. But in this case, I want to kind of encapsulate what can change zip actually does. Because maybe at some point I change this to, instead of showing more, it just has like a little like input that says change your zip. And then like the more abstraction wouldn't make sense. So like by making this something like generically named like can change zip, it's clear to an outside creator of this class what that property does, but it doesn't kind of reveal any kind of the inner components. So it's a trade-off. It's harder to see what that function does if I have to edit this summary class, but at the same time, it kind of lets it be white box. Can change it. So finally, should show more is can change zip. And we'll assign this to tax node. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, 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 boop. Finally, okay, and then we'll make a shipping node. We don't need this anymore. which is of type React element. I don't know why this guy's like gray right here. I don't know what's up with that. Make more node, and loading is going to be loading shipping. It's weird sometimes how if I like rename two different variables at two different times, like how similar my naming conventions are. It never fails. Like next time I see it, I'll say it as an example, but I was talking and lost my train of thought. But I always just have the same names for everything. It's really creepy. It's not creepy, but it's just weird. I feel really in the zone right now. Like in that Facebook movie, where they're like, this person's like wired in. That you're looking at it right now. This is what wired in feels like when you have like a time crunch, and like time just slips away because you're super in the zone. This is what it actually is. I didn't like that movie though. Sweet. So now we refactored, and it only took me 4 times as long as I thought. So that's why you double or triple software estimates. Cool. So now that we have this, we can go in and actually change the function like we wanted to. So like we were in the rabbit hole, and now we're going to back out. Like we're going to relax, back out. It'll be super easy. Hold on, got to check a contract real quick. Quick timeout. Okay, looks good. Okay, so now let's add this should show more parameter that I worked so hard to add. Should show more. This guy goes here. Else. We don't even need an else. Plus, they're just going to be null. Boom. Okay. This looks great. Put some parens around that bad boy. Looks good. Okay. So now we have like the should show more thing successfully implemented on the actual component, but now we have to make sure that it looks good from the way that we're actually using it. So let's go back to where are we using this? Wait, is it order confirm? No. Order review. No, order confirm. Oh, wait, there's an error here. No, it's gone. Order confirm. Okay, so cart summary. Now we will just say, what was it called? I already forgot. Can change zip. So how do we know if we can change the zip? We can only change the zip if the shipping is not done yet. So now we need to make sure that the confirm order class knows whether or not the shipping is complete or not. So I actually do this logic in a different spot. You'll notice the top bar here, it might be kind of too small to see. Let me see if I can just zoom. Does that work? Does the zoom work? Oh yeah, it totally does. See, the shipping has like a little like done. So I must be using logic somewhere to determine whether the shipping is complete or not. So I want to make sure the logic's the same here and there. And I think I abstracted that into a function call. So I'll just check really fast. So this little component is called checkout sequence bar. So sequence bar item, shipping, complete, shipping complete. So I have this variable, so let's see where that comes from. That comes from properties. And that property is set right here. Oh, and look, see, I have this nice function that, I'll be honest, I wrote like 2 hours ago, so I knew it was already there. That tells me, given the app state, if the shipping is complete or not. So this is a weird hand motion. I kind of do it a lot. Yeah, it looks weird. Okay, so shipping complete we're going to just add that logic to the thing that we're building right now. Order confirm. So let's see here. Confirm order. Let's just add this line exactly. Shipping complete state. Okay, should import it. And finally, in our render, we're going to grab that property. Shipping complete. And we're going to put it can change zip shipping complete. Now there's actually one bug that I want to make sure I address before I go any further. So right now can change zip has a default value of undefined since I haven't defined a default value for it. So the cart doesn't pass a can change zip property. So by default the cart will follow the same behavior as the order confirm, and I do not want that. I do not want that. So I'm going to add a default property for what this can change zip will be. Cart summary, default props, can change zip is going to be true. So by default, set that to a value of true. Because if I don't set it to true, then the cart won't be able to. I'd have to change it in the cart, and I just don't want to do that. I just don't want to mess with that right now. So that should be good to go, and I think we're ready to try it out. Make sure we didn't get any crashes. Nope, we totally did. Where? Whoa, it's a giant crash. That was like forever ago. I must have just had like a slip. Where is this? So this indicates when there is an error compiling. So there's an unexpected token on line 184. That line doesn't even exist. Oh, and cart summary. Yeah, I fixed that though. Totally fixed that. Come on, reload. There we go. Okay, so let's see if this works as expected. So if everything goes as expected, these plus buttons should not be there. And then the next step will be, we'll just deal with how to actually show the tax. Well, I guess the tax should just show up, shouldn't it? You just can't change the value. Let's just see what happens. See what we got here. This is why it's important to have like a TV with Planet Earth, or that one about the oceans or something showing. So like when these kind of boring things are happening, you can just like look at it really fast and then go back to this. Vital to the development process. IMHO. So order, review, confirm. While we wait, I haven't been doing this long enough to have like a cool thing to do while we wait. Like people have like cool songs and like animations to play. I don't have any of that. I probably won't ever have that, but I can just do some work while we wait. So after we update the summary, the next thing that we're going to want to update is those kind of little boxes where I have the shipping and the measurements that you selected. Since this is a suit manufacturer, we take measurements for like, you know, what your waist is and stuff. And then we're gonna have the last one will be the payment nonce, which just shows like what the last four digits of your card are and that good stuff. So let's see what we get here. It's thinking about it. It's really thinking about it. Really thinking about it. I'm not sure why my styling here kind of went back to its original state. What happened? Card summary. Oh, I didn't update it in the actual editor. So I think I had 4 and 4. Okay, so I messed something up. It's embarrassing. Oh, nope, I didn't. It looks good, but I still have this plus node. That doesn't make any sense. What happened here? So again, like whenever I debug, I prefer instead of like to jump into the code in the browser and like look at the state and see what's wrong. If I can just like if I can look at the code and like immediately figure it out, it's just much faster than having to go through and seeing like I missed a return statement somewhere, which I did in the past. But forget what I just said. I'm just gonna look. So looking in the browser window, I only have 30 minutes left. Looking in the browser window, so there's this nice like debug tools for React, and it will just show me like what props are set on a component, and like what its state is and that kind of stuff. It's really, really handy. So I'm thinking either the shipping complete hasn't been calculated effectively, or I made a mistake when rendering my component. So let's see what we got here. Cart summary. So it looks like cart summary has can change zip is set to true. Oh, you know what I probably did? What's it called? Order review? Order confirm. Order conform order. Shipping complete. That's ridiculous. It should be not shipping complete, right? Yeah, because if the shipping's complete, you cannot change zip. Having negatives is like a terrible thing. Like that's not good code, but whatever, just leave it. So that should fix our problem, I'm assuming. So let's just kind of leave that for now and go to designing these like boxes where it's going to be kind of look like this, where we're going to have the measurements listed and the shipping address listed and the payment nonce listed. So it looks like in the code, Carnegie Mellon Engineering, I have this, I have different components for each thing. Confirm item list. Let's just get rid of that. That's absolute garbage. See ya. Okay, so I'm going to want this laid out like a row. And then I'm going to have each item be... So the cool thing about Bootstrap is when I condense to mobile, which the site is not mobile ready yet, but it will be in a day or so. When I condense down to mobile, it'll just rearrange all the columns really easily, so I can specify how big I want each column to be on mobile. So that's the really nice part about Bootstrap. It just makes condensing to mobile much easier. That's kind of why you use it. So let's just get rid of all of this. All of it. All of it. I think this. So the next thing I'm going to have is just this row. So you can see I define things in rows. So now the question becomes, do I want to abstract this into a more generic component so that I have the title and the data all in the same component that I can reuse, or like name each component? So have like a checkout confirm item box, or have like a shipping confirm item box and a measurements confirm item box. I think I'm going to go with I'm going to go with separate boxes. So let's break a new React component. I think this is the first time I've done this. Not like ever, but while under the pressure of nobody watching me. So let's call this, let's do the address first. So shipping confirm, what's a good name? Like a box. I like box. How about just shipping confirm? Okay, so the app state is available to any component that I render through React's use of context. And all that means is like it's available anywhere I want it. Context is pretty nice. You're not supposed to use it, or so they say, but it's just so much easier. It makes my life so much easier than having to pass down a whole bunch of props. The downside, though, is it does ruin my ability to determine which components have been updated and which don't need to be updated. So, going back to shipping confirm. So the decorator I use to extract the app state is called Redux decorator or something. What's it called? I can't remember. Redux Connect. So Redux Connect. So this is my chance to map the state, the app state, to the props. And I'm going to not cheat, but I've already done this before in the actual shipping step. So I think it's called shipping. So you see here I have this Redux Connect, and it has all this data in it. So from the global app state, I'm pulling each one of these components. And that's the nice thing about using like a global app state, is that now when I want to use this somewhere else, kind of like it's kind of sideways from where I'm using it right here, I can use it anywhere I want. The app state is global to all components that I might need it. So that's the benefit of using Redux over just like setting state in a React component, because it's just more difficult to manage, and Redux just has a nice syntax, I think. So, still time. What do I need from here? So I want the shipping to look like this, I think. Stand by. It's always helpful to draw. That's why I have like this notebook I have with me at all times. Okay, so I wanted to have this kind of like horizontal flow. I want it to kind of look like this, like it's almost like it's one of those kind of shipping labels you see printed on the side of the box, just like really neat and clean. So everything's going to be centered here, and I'm going to have some spacing in all these items, and probably use a good color variant for the title. Not an underline, that'd be too much. But name, email, address, kind of like a really basic shipping flow. So I start with a picture, and then I determine what data I need to fill in the information on that picture. So I need address, name, email, phone, and that's it. So let's just copy and paste it right from my other component. I'm not going to abstract this into a different function because I think that's kind of a waste. This code is so simple. So we have address, email, phone, name, boom. Nice and easy. Okay, so now let's actually, so now I have the drawing, I have the data, so now let's build the component that renders the data. So we'll wrap everything in a div like we always do. Define our styles variable down here. Again, I'll probably abstract that in a different file, but I don't really see the point of doing it right now. It might just be tiny, who knows? I don't know yet. Root, base. So again, I keep this kind of nested hierarchy because if I want to add something like this, or like this, it just makes it much nicer to just kind of add it to this little section right here. Although maybe at some point I'll have something like this. I'll think about that. Anyways, so the root.base. Okay, so what am I gonna want? I think I'm gonna want this to have like kind of an off coloring from that lightish brown color. So let's go ahead and make the background. Let's make it like a light gray. I have this light gray variable defined, and I'll show you what it is. So instead of like saying EO, 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 I put it in this variable light gray. And this corresponds to the Google Gray 300. So Google has this list of really nice colors that work on the web that I've just found like look really, really nice, and I don't have to think too much about it. Let me find it. So google.com/design, you can find a ton of good resources, and this like is kind of boring. It just goes through what material design is, which like it's interesting to read, I guess. But what they have here that's really cool is let's see, style. They have colors. And once it loads, they have this list of colors that they recommend that I've just found to be like really spot on for what look good on the web. So you have like these reds, and it condenses it down to like, oh my god, what color could I possibly pick for this? To like a dozen options. You're like, oh, I want a red. Okay, here's a bunch of reds that work. And I don't always use these. Like I don't think the brand color for this website that we're building is a Google color, but it's just a nice place to kind of get started. So in this case, I'm going to use this gray. Let's see, it's a Google Gray 300. So this, that's maybe a little too dark actually. 100, that looks better. So we'll use extra light gray. This kind of like, you can see it's not much different than that white background, but it's like just enough to catch your eye. You know what, let's put a border around it. So let's double this up. Let's make this extra light gray. And let's put a border, 1px solid. So here, like you're already starting to see the downsides of separating these out into different individual components. If I want the other components to look like this, to have this border and to have this extra light gray background, I'm gonna have to either copy and paste these styles or like put them in a global style. So it'll be harder to share styles. This is kind of the downside, but whatever, I'll take it. So I'm gonna have this kind of like off gray color. That sounds good. And then, like I said, I want the top. I kind of want the top actually to look just like the order summary. So you see this is order summary title. I want it to look like that, maybe a little bit, not quite as like aggressive. So let's add here, let's add an H6. And we'll call this shipping. And again, the downside of inline style is now I have to add a style to this. No, I'm gonna get wild here. No, I'm not gonna get wild. Too nervous. Too nervous. T-title. Okay, so let's just add a margin bottom. And again, I like the 12, 24, whatever. So let's go with, I'm trying to visualize, it's so much easier when you have a vector image to work off of because you can just pull it right from the vector image. But I think I'm going to want like 24. And then I'm going to want a kind of bolder font weight. You know what, let's make this a P, not an H6, too big. So I have this mixin called font weight. And this just like lets me define font weight in kind of a more verbose way rather than putting like a number on it. And I just kind of like that. It's purely for syntax or syntactic sugar, Nothing fancy about it. Okay. That looks pretty good. Oh, I'm gonna want everything to be text center. So let's just define this new kind of style attribute called text item, and it's gonna have text align center. So let's add because everything below this is also going to be text center. So now, really easy here. It's just going to be styles dot. Let's call this content item. Call it content item. Styles.content item. And okay, so I'm going to want these to be text center, which the text item will take care of. But I'm going to want like a little bit of space on each one of these content items. So let's just add like just a tiny, let's just add 6. Again, that nice like divisibility factor. 6, 12, 24. So the top is going to be, let's pull these props out. Name, address, email, phone. I think I might have an address. No. Okay. So the first thing we're going to put is the name. Really nice. So it'll be like Taylor Stein. And then the address. We'll go like this. Address 1. And then address 2. And then finally we're going to put here, nice and easy, address. So it's going to be like Taylor Stein, 328 Emerson Street, apartment 1, Pittsburgh, not Pittsburgh, city, address dot state, Pittsburgh, PA, and then it's comma, right? I'm pretty sure, yeah. Address dot zip. Tell me there's a property on address. No? Postal code? So this is when flow and type annotations are nice. Like I can't remember what the address component is called, if it's zip or postal code or whatever. So I can just look at it. So I have this defined somewhere. Like commerce types. State types, maybe. So I don't have postal code in there. Oh, interesting. I wonder if city encompasses postal code. Okay, not a big deal. I think that, so this website is planning on doing a lot of international shipping, and that makes address validation like impossible to do well. The problem is that so many different addresses around the world require so many different types of input. And if you restrict somebody to what, since I live in the United States, like a US based address, it might just kind of scare them away. So the shipping component, instead of having like a, state, name, address, kind of standard shipping list, we have like a more open-ended, well, I'll just show you. This is just kind of something that we've been experimenting with. We've been doing some user testing to see if this is actually effective or not. And the feedback we've gotten is pretty overwhelmingly positive, rather than the kind of standard format that you're used to. So it's probably going too slow to render with Google Map. Oh, here we go. Here it's up. So this is kind of like our idea to mitigate this really ugly shipping address problem. So we have this really open-ended what's your address, and we follow that up by making sure we have the correct address by showing you a picture of saying this is where we're going to send your item. So let's say this was empty. It's just very slow with the stream. Delete, 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 delete. Let's pretend like it's empty. Don't crash. Don't crash. Well, okay, so the point is that it has a drop down. It says, if you start typing 328 Emerson Street, a drop down will come down from the Google Suggestions Places API and suggest the autocomplete feature. So it's really nice, and it will work for international addresses, and it shows you exactly on a map where we'll be sending your product. So we found that users kind of like really connect with that idea, and it's done pretty well so far. So for now, we'll keep it. Anyways, that's the reason why this address type doesn't have like a postal code or a state, because not all addresses internationally have postal codes or states. So this is just going to be address.city. Cool. So we have the name, address. Let's do email and phone. Damn it, I bent the page. Oh, cool, we got this to delete. So let's pretend like, what's a cool address? I think Google has a cool address. It's like Mountain View or something. Something cool. Amphitheater Road. I'll just use my address. Let's say we use 328 Emerson Street. So as we start typing 328, which it will get there eventually. And it will drop down. Okay, it's not going to do it. It's just too slow. It's too slow, but it'll drop down and it'll have that auto kind of complete thing for you. So let's finally add. Next is going to be, I think email should go before. No, phone goes before email. Phone. Isles.email. Ooh. Oh, okay. This is a useless error. It never happens when I want it to happen. So, side note. I ignore that. I know that happens, but I just ignore it. Cool. So this should be pretty much all set. So we're going to make a little box. Oh, I'm going to want to add some padding to that box. So let's just do that here. So for padding, I'm thinking, let's do like 36 pixels. So we have this like padding, box, bordered, shipping address. Sounds good. So let's go back to confirm order. What was it called? Shipping complete? Shipping confirm? Shipping confirm. We'll toss this bad boy in there. In there. In there. Right there. Oh. No, I added it. Okay, so again, I'm going to use classes just because I haven't found a good way around the Bootstrap CSS problem. I haven't found a good way around the Bootstrap CSS problem, so I'm just going to leave it go for now. So 3 columns. Let's do 4, 4, and 4. Let's do 4, 4, and 4. So call SM4. And for now, let's just copy this 3 times to see how it looks. And while it's loading and refreshing, the next component I'm going to want to do is, so the measurements is a little bit harder. The shipping will always kind of have like a defined characteristic shape to it, but if, let's say you purchased like a suit and a tuxedo and pants, you're going to have a long list of measurements. And since the actual size of the component can change so much, I'm wondering the best way to make it look kind of, I want it to be all across one line or else it'll look kind of sloppy. So let's just add a minimum height. We'll do the exact same thing we did with shipping confirm, but we'll add a minimum height. Let's make a new React file. We'll call it measurements confirm. Let's say payment. Payments will be in the middle, but we'll do measurements second. Measurements confirm. So you'll notice like I have this file template set up to add this kind of like React class. That's just like another nice part of having an IDE. So I don't need to like add this configured radium or inherited prop stuff. It just populates it automatically. So I don't need to really mess with that. Okay, so the other thing we're going to need is we're going to have to pull in Redux. Redux decorator. And like I did with shipping, I already have a component that uses all the measurements. I think it's called measurements. Yeah, measurements. Measurement input nodes. Okay, so I just take this measurements state. Oh, I thought someone was coming into my apartment. It scared the crap out of me. Okay. Oh, nope, this is not the one I want to edit. Now I'm all thrown off. I thought I was going to get murdered. Okay, here we go. So the state I'm going to map just to these measurements list. So, cool. So now I want the box to look exactly the same, but I'm going to have like some repeat functionality. And I think I want the measurements to look like... trying to visualize in my head what they should look like. Maybe something like... Colons are so overrated. But let's use a colon. Let's use a colon. So I want it to look like this. Drawing. So we're going to use like a flex wrap layout. So I kind of drew it a little bit bigger on purpose, but I'm going to have it look like this. So it's going to be a box, and we're going to have the title for measurements. And then across here, we're just going to list like, waist colon the measurement, hips colon the measurement, and so on and so forth. So we're just going to list that in a line. And then we're going to want to make sure to add a wrap here. So if we have too many items, we'll wrap around to the next row. And we want to make sure to add a minimum height here. And the other thing is we want to make sure these are centered in this box. So we're going to have this minimum height. I'll figure out what height this is and then set that as the minimum height. But we're going to have this be able to wrap and kind of be able to grow as the number of measurements grows. So we will use Flexbox for that. So let's pull the measurements prop out. Oh no, I'm almost out of time. Okay, so define a styles. You know what? Let's just define root. Let's just get wild. I'm not going to say root.base.whatever. I usually don't use it that much, so we'll try changing. Okay, so the root style, we're going to have the exact same as our shipping confirm style. So I want it to be background, extra light gray, border, and padding. So the best way I found to do this is I have this global style object. It's not good. Basically, anything that's in this global style object represents a breakdown in the way I've written my JavaScript. And like I said, when we started this kind of little escapade, there's a downside to writing these in separate components, and it's that it makes the parent component simpler because it doesn't have to manage state for 3 individual components, but it makes the individual components more complex and threatened by code repetitiveness. So I'm going to abstract, I'm going to move these styles into this global style object. And, you know, it's not that big right now, but this is something I have to watch because, like, if it gets too big, then this is going to be no different than using CSS. And so this is like a real weakness in the code base right now, but I haven't figured out a better way yet. So let's just pop back over to shipping confirm, and we'll grab this. And now we have to think of a name for this. This is my least favorite part, thinking of like a specific name for something that's super arbitrary. So let's just say confirm item root. Let's not say root, let's say confirm item. So now we change this to gs.confirm item. And if it imports it for me. So what that lets us do is, like, copy and paste code, always bad, always terrible. So now we don't have to do that. Now we can just go like this. Boom. And when we want to change it, if we want to change the color to a different background or something, the background to a different color, we only have one place to change it. Okay, so that looks good. Now the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add a content wrapper. And this is going to be our content wrapper. And again, see here, I want the title, like the measurements on top, to look the same as the shipping title. Oops. Oops. So I'm going to pull out this title here also. Confirm item. So now I'm going to have a root. I'm going to add a nesting structure here. And like this class, this file is just growing, and it's not good. It's really not good. I'm stressed out about it. Okay, so let's add here. And now we have to, fortunately we haven't used this very many places, so we only have to refactor one spot. And boy, you know, we're going to really need to have this entire thing moved. Trying to think of a better way to do this, but I really got nothing right now. Actually, we won't need this. Let's just leave this for now. Where each of the measurement nodes is going to go. So before I define the measurement nodes, I'm going to define some of the logic in here. So the content wrapper, again, we want it to display as like centered in the width and length of the container, and I want it to wrap around and so if it's too long, I want it to wrap around and grow the container length. And the best way to do that is, well, not the best way, but the way I like to do it is a flexbox. So I'll use my flex centered mixin, which does display flex, align item center, justify content center. And I'm going to say align content center, and that tells Flexbox what to do when there's a wrap. So when there's a wrap, I want it to be, instead of like drawing. So if the wrap's like this, like the top one, so that's the default behavior. It just wraps and then puts it kind of at the beginning of the row. I don't want that. I'd rather have it be the bottom one, where if we have to wrap, things go towards the center and build outward. So just kind of a preference. I think that might look a little nicer. We're kind of going like with a centered look to everything. So line content center, and then finally we want to specify that Flex should actually wrap. Flex wrap. So that's what's up with that. That looks good. Now, you have a margin on this, right? Yeah. 24 is going to be too much, I'm telling you right now. Okay, so almost there. Now we need to actually make the measurement nodes. Which is going to be an array of React elements. I need to import React element. So we're going to use Lodash to iterate through the measurements. And I believe measurements is a measurement map, so we want to go values dot map. And here is really cool. We can use type checking here, so we'll say measurement, which is of type measurement. And an index we get in map, which is of type number. We want to import measurement. So now I know that this is going to be this value here is going to be of type measurement. Move this down here. Is going to be of type measurement, and if not, it's going to throw an error and tell me something's wrong. And a measurement has a name, value, and units. So again, I want it to be name, so like waist, and then the value, and then the units. So this is just going to look like this. Return, let's use a p element. We have to make sure to add a key because React likes that. Add a key. Style is going to be This is where I'm just going to do a little bit of code copy, and like it's already getting a little bit out of hand. Because I'm going to have a margin top and bottom of 8, but I'm also going to need a margin top of 8, but I'm also going to need a margin side to push the items away from each other. So measurement item. So I put the margins on the child elements because then if it wraps, the margins aren't necessarily on the parent element, so it just makes it look like much more natural when it wraps. So for this, we'll add margin top. Oh, you know what? We can't have a margin on this guy then. So we're going to have a margin top of 12 on these guys. And we're going to have to change this margin bottom to 12. Because since the children will have a margin bottom, the children are going to push themselves down from the title, 12. And then the title only needs to be pushed. The title only needs to push its children down by 12 to equal a total of 24. So I have a margin top of 12, and let's just put a margin left of 12. So they're spaced horizontally and vertically from each other. And this is just going to look like this. This is going to be name. Let's pull these out. Name. And then, oh, lost a tick mark somewhere. That's not good. value, and then units. And then we'll put it in our React element. Got to make sure to convert this to an array. Cool, and that should work great. The only other thing I want to add is I want to add a minimum height here. Because like I said, I want it to match up with the other two items in the row, unless there's like an absurd amount of measurements. So I'm just going to guess what the height will be. I'm going to say 400. That sounds good. Okay, cool. So let's go back to our confirm and just plug that guy in. Confirm order, review order, confirm order. Let's import. Measurement confirm. Toss that guy in here. Okay, let's see what we get. I think this is probably the last thing I have time for, so we'll see how this looks, and then if it looks terrible, the next time I stream it will just look amazing and it'll be like magic. And no one ever has to know. So, while we wait for that to recompile, we'll look and see what the Google cast picture is. It's pretty nice. Cool. I have nothing clever or witty to say. I'm just gonna wait. I got nothing. I got nothing right now. I just hope this works out. The other thing I'm gonna want to add that I just decided like in the last couple hours that I would like is to have in the upper right corner, like I have this nice bar flow to check out, but I would really like in the upper right corner like a little drop down that says your order total is however much money, because that's like the number one thing you care about when you're placing an order is how much the total is. So having a little drop down in the upper right corner, I think, might look a little strange, but I think it'll help the flow overall. It'll help like the user experience, because it's just nice to see how much money you are planning on spending as you go through the checkout process, instead of having to wait to the very end when like all of a sudden you go to submit the order and it's like more than you remember and it's just bad news. So that's the other thing I'm going to add. Boy, it's just really slow. Really, really slow. I hope I can show you this. My computer doesn't burn out. Okay, finally we're going. See what we got here, how we look. Normally this is like half development speed. When you don't have to talk and code at the same time, it goes faster, but this is kind of like anything that involves styling tends to take longer for me, at least, because there's like much more of an element of like, does this look good? You might have to redo it rather than just writing some kind of function or algorithm to do something, which is pretty straightforward. It's either correct or it's not. So this always takes me a little bit longer to do styling. Looks like we might have something in a minute. Maybe. Fingers crossed. Uh-oh, we're going to throw an error. And we have nothing. That is really tragic. Uh, that's really, really sad. Um, let's see if I can fix it really fast. And if not, I'll just have to end on a really sad note. Ooh, right here. Boom. Forgot the S. So yeah, that's what's gonna kill me on this one. So yeah, forgotten S. That happens sometimes. And like it happens to me specifically with the letter S. I don't know what it is about the letter S, but I hate having things of like in plurals, like measurement nodes, measurements. I always forget the S all the time, and it's the worst. All right, we're refreshed. Let's see if this can load real quick. I should do something cooler on stream, like play video games. Much more fun. Come on. It's thinking about it. It's thinking about it. Oh, it's thinking about it. It's really considering. Oh, cool. See? It looks terrible, but not too terrible. It's kind of close. Like the look is pretty close. Like we're not super far off. So this doesn't look bad. We're just gonna clean up the color a little bit, make the padding a little smaller, add some padding on the sides of the actual container so it's not like sucked up against the container. But this is pretty close. It's 90% there, and you can see our measurements look pretty good. Um, I'm going to need to update a few things on that, and we're also missing the box around it, but overall, not too bad. So that's kind of where I'm going to end it on the place order summary, and next time, maybe, I'm not sure if I'll have time to do it today, but maybe I'll add the logic to actually implement order placement on the back end. So that's going to be it. So yeah. Ooh, on the error too. Terrible way to end.